Well, welcome to the Elevated Frequency podcast. I am so excited to be here with my husband's cousin, Dr. Patrick Donovan. And I'm just so excited for you to share more and introduce you to our community and vice versa, and just hear a little bit more about what you do. We connected on a call last week or the week before and had a great time, checking in and catching up on each other's businesses and talking about the state of, the health industry overall and our different niches. So we thought it would be fun to just hop on a podcast. And also, I think one of the things I'm really excited to hear about from you, Patrick, is the population, the specific niche that you're supporting. So without further ado, could you share a little about your background and what exactly you do and who you help?
Well, thank you for having me, Lisa. I'm excited to be here. And I've been following in your journey for many, many years. And to see you blossom into this beautiful young woman with a great, lively, engaged following, I'm just so fortunate to be a part of it as well. But I am a physical therapist by training with geriatric specialist. So I had a clinic for 7 years, and I've worked in all populations from active masters swimmers doing shoulder and posture mobility workouts to holding the hand of a person in hospice trying to make her laugh on her last days. So I've covered a lot of different settings, and for the last 7 years, I've been working mainly with older adults with orthopedic conditions. So people trying to prevent knee surgeries, back surgeries. I work a lot with chronic pain and people that have been to several physical therapists and other practitioners before they come to my clinic that I have in Denver. My approach in clinic is mostly like biomechanics in nature. So all the muscles and pulleys and levers of our body are all connected in this wonderful way, and to find out where the weak links on those chains are has been really like where I've found my clinical practice continue to grow. And yeah, in January, I shut down my clinic in lieu of a program that I was running at the time called the Aging Mastery Program. And so I've been running that program initially in clinic and then transferring now to fully digital. So yeah, that's what brings me to, trying to make more crossroads in the with people like you.
Yes, like the shift to online is very interesting. It's so funny telling the Green Door Life story. I'm like, well, we incorporated and launched our business right before COVID, which was just a fascinating shift of like scrambling immediately, but also, served us because we just moved right into an online platform.
Yeah.
It's been so interesting. Like, how have you found that shift, like going from in person to online? Are you liking the interaction? I'm sure there's like pros and cons, but how has that been?
Yeah. Definitely the population I serve is, because of COVID, very friendly with online engagement. So that has been helpful. Like I do everything on Zoom only because Zoom is the most familiar. Like it's not my preferred software to do a lot of these interactions, but it is the easiest for my customers to get online and do all that. They had a few years of figuring that out. Yeah, that's something. The thing I miss is like the social part, like the community part, which is more and more important as we age because people spend more time in sedentary lifestyles. Hopefully by next year, I have a little bit more feet on the ground to have more like community engagement. So right now, everything I'm doing is geared towards this aging mastery program. And on like the backside of that, I would like to have a social component because I see the people that go through the program, which is a small group program, and they get to know each other and they're encouraging each other. by the fifth week of that 5 week program, they're like getting each other's phone numbers and wanting to email. Like they're like, "Oh, where's Janice? Why is she on the call?" And they like want check-ins. So I want to keep that part going because I've never, the nature of physical therapy is one-on-one. So I started doing small groups like as soon as I opened my clinic, and those groups would be like, for instance, I did a safe landing workshop. So people learn how to fall, which
Okay.
is really fun. And it's so unnerving and vulnerable for like a 70-year-old or a 90-year-old. And it totally depends on the person because I've had 90-year-olds that are jumping to fall because they know how important it is to learn the principles through this like 4 week course that I did. And then that inspired like the younger people who are less like who are 70 or so to try to do the fall like that we kind of practiced in the last week. I think about that like connection a lot and how I want to recreate that online. So I've gotten a few ideas from you, but that is definitely in the pipeline to encourage that social part because I do miss that.
Oh, it's such a great point. And okay, the falling thing, I just saw a reel on Instagram not long ago, and it was this elderly lady, and she was literally practicing falling. And I'm like, what is she doing? It was like mind blowing to me. I'm like, is this some weird gymnastics or like a B-roll of outtakes? But she was literally practicing falling forward,
Yeah.
backward, all this stuff. And I was just so drawn to it. Like I would just never, I don't know, I
Hmm.
would never think about that at I just turned 43. So even just like that concept of practicing falling, like what a foreign concept. But I would imagine as you get older, it's something to focus on and why in our training right now for our clients, which ranges of all ages, but I would say predominantly we're right now like kind of shifting because we're getting older, so it's like 40 and up. But we do have, my mom trains with us, and some, we have people in their 60s and even 70s, and all the stuff that we're doing is very like unilateral movement, single arm, single leg, balancing, mobility, and strength. And even jumping, to continue that, muscular and even like bone stimulation. Um, and like I can feel the conversation shifting to focus more on longevity and really, because if you look at statistically, falls are one of the biggest detriments, to people as they age in terms of like health complications. So I love that I just saw this. It's like so new to
Yeah.
me, and I like found it so fascinating because some people like have that instinctually. I do not have that. Chanley, my husband, has that. Regarding the community piece, it is what we found is, shifting over, like we started with one-on-one as well. And once we brought in that community piece, it's such a game changer because everybody connects. And then, it's I really feel like we're moving away from that kind of siloed health support and looking at this more holistic picture of like, there's so much more there, especially that social component, especially as people get older. So I love that you're already thinking about that. And I can just see your clients like connecting and wanting to stay in touch. And what a beautiful thing that
Hmm.
you're creating. So really my question for you is what drew you to like this population or subset of focus? Was it something personal or you just had an intuitive hit?
I completely think this population of, I'd say 70 and up, it starts getting on people's radars about 55, 60, where they're starting to accumulate chronic conditions, they're slowing down, they're so underserved.
Yeah.
And the resources that they have available to them are basically trying to fit into another program's box or like modifying something harder or making scaling up something easier. Whereas when I go to yoga or a strength training class, like I still get one-on-one attention. So I wanted to try to emulate the things I like about exercise and being engaged with my body for for this population that I had been working with for orthopedic conditions for several years. So I just saw so many patterns arise that didn't have great solutions in the healthcare system. If you or I hurt our knee and we go to see our PCP, we get referred to a specialist, they're not going to recommend that we get a total knee replacement. But
Mm.
that, I'd say 4 times out of 5 is like a common thing that I hear in my clinic. Like they might have just had a fall or like they might have had like trauma to their knee. The buck kind of stops at that surgeon and the surgeon says, okay, well, come to me when you're ready to have it replaced. And that's the solution. So yeah, like I just had a gentleman in my last course who had a fall and he banged his knee and it was sore and bruised for weeks because he's almost 80 and that was his main reason for taking my course was to avoid a knee replacement, or like that's the only option he had was knee replacement, or let's try this 5-week course with Dr. Pat. There was just so much like low-hanging fruit with him that we found out about in his one-on-one virtual assessment, that it just became so obvious to him that he had so much more he could do. I gave him probably 6 things that he could progress every week if he wanted to for the next 6 weeks. Since then, he's reached out and let me know that everything we helped him do, he got back to his old walking distance, his old walking pace. He's got his confidence back. Like he was so much more hesitant around his knee because he knew that the next step was a knee replacement. So I guess I just want to, nothing against knee replacements. They're very necessary for a lot of people. But if I can prolong that by 10 years from a 5-week course, that seems like, yeah. And those were kind of happening in my clinic quite frequently. And I kind of morphed those patterns into the frameworks that I teach in this course so that people can take their health into their own hands. I know that's a long version of how this got started, but yeah, I've always had a soft spot or like that's where my passion is working with that underserved population.
Oh my gosh, I love that so much. And it's so rewarding when you actually feel like you have an impact, and it's the ripple effect of it's not just about for example, this gentleman's knee. It's like, wow, his confidence is back. He's walking again. I think
Hmm.
one of the hardest things, and kind of watching some of the people in our own families as they get older, I think, yeah, now all of my grandparents have passed. But like watching a couple of them lost some of their abilities, physical abilities towards the end, and you could see how it impacted them in terms of like confidence and self-sufficiency, and they didn't like that, versus the other two, like we're still pretty able to take care of themselves, for the most part. So it is interesting to see, like, besides the benefit of not having to undergo surgery, which is to me a bonus, especially as you get older, but also just that you cannot put a price tag or a value on like someone having confidence again and feeling self-empowered. So I love that you are drawn to this demographic, and I think you're spot on. I think they're definitely underserved all around. And like what a gift for you to be able to, support that demographic, especially at your age, which is, how is the dynamic? Are they like playful with you? Are they like they probably feel like you're so young, how does that
Yeah, I'm
how does
like
that
their grandchild.
yeah.
And my partner has this theory that we are 2 ages in ourselves,
Yeah.
and mine are 7 and 70. So I can tap in. I try to tap into my 7-year-old to find play and fun and exploring your boundaries. For the 70-year-olds, like that falling course, they really had to get outside their comfort zone and play like a 7-year-old
Yeah.
to learn those like prerequisite skills that are necessary to protect your neck and protect your wrist when you are trying to disperse weight. I can tap it. I can kind of find those 2 ages pretty nicely when I need to, like when when somebody's coming to me with like this let's say they're going from one physical ability and they're kind of settling into like, hey, I'm not going to be able to do stairs anymore, or I wish I could go on that hike with my husband. And they're like kind of reconciling that. Like I try to act as mature as I can. But then if they want help and they want to try something that's not surgery and some biomechanics guided movement, then I tap into my 7-year old and try to play with them. I do not have a hard time fitting in with that age group. I have a
So
harder time fitting in with my own age group.
I feel you. Oh my gosh, I feel you. I feel you on that. That is such a cool, interesting approach, and how fun, for that age group and that demographic to like tap into that childlike curiosity. I was actually talking about this with a client on a podcast recently about how I feel like the older you get, you kind of see this division of, adults who continue to learn and grow and
Hmm.
get in that discomfort zone. I'm kind of used to it now, just being a business owner of like terrified to come, go speak at this retreat I'm booked at in October, and I'm going to do it anyway.
Hmm.
It's like you either keep going and pushing yourself and growing, or you kind of, I don't know, the other path to me feels like you're stuck and you're kind of a curmudgeon. And I'm always like, it's okay, we can all complain and vent every now and then, obviously, but I feel like I would much rather go on the path of playful. And I also feel like that's where, part of this restructuring of modern society that's so interesting to me. I like to think about how it was back in the day when, like, naturally, we had grandparents and the elderly connected with the little ones. And they are, when you see that energy exchange, and then, to reflect that you're calling on your 7-year-old self, like that childlike curiosity and playfulness, like that's the bridge of literally keeping them young and engaged and,
Hmm.
wanting to still be around and play. And I just love that it really does feel multifaceted about, the support that you're giving. So before we go further, I have this idea in my head of what you guys are doing. The only thing that I know about, fitness and exercise for elderly people that I grew up with was like, I think we talked about like the chair workouts. I don't even know who it was, maybe Jane Fonda, but it was like the lady sitting on the chair and she would just like march her legs. So
Yeah.
give us the little picture of what you actually do in, is it aging mastery?
Yeah. Aging mastery program. Yeah. We actually just spend 10 weeks in a chair marching up and down. If that's as much as is like is physically available to you, to this person, there's nothing wrong with it. But that person might be looking for more guidance out of those exercises if they're taking my one-on-one small group course. You can just watch YouTube videos for that. The course does speak to a lot of different functional levels. So that was kind of the hard part in making this, is that every 65-year-old is going to have so many different life experiences, challenges, injuries that they're bringing to day one. There are some templated things that bring in everyone. So in the last cohort, I had a 92-year-old great grandma and her daughter who was like 60. It does span a lot of different ages. I try not to harp too much on that. Is more I spend in the physical evaluation, we find out your physiological age through a series of 5 objective tests. And that's the age I use throughout the course. So you get your physiological age, and then you map that to what you want to be able to do in 5 years to 50 years. And then we kind of get started on a plan to match what you're asking your body to do versus what you want to be able to do in 20 years or 40 years. So the person who's 90 is not going to have the same goal. They might just want to be able to pick up their great grandchild or even just holding a great grandchild versus the 60-year-old who wants to go on a European vacation. But
Yeah.
they're both being served unique. They have their one-on-one evaluation, so we know where they're at right now, and then we know where they want to go. And then we
Mhm.
just start them on that map by the whole thing is called their Healthspan Trail Map. So the whole series is like your own aging expedition. And everyone has to carry a backpack, everyone has to put on their shoes, and everyone has to go out the door.
Yeah.
But how far you're walking and what you're carrying, metaphorically and physically, are up to you. So I think one of the most common problems I see is like a 65-year-old who is slowing down, sure, and they like want to take this course to see where they're at, but they just have no concept like what it takes to keep doing what they're doing in another 8 or 10 years because we're losing our muscle mass, bone density, tissue strength about 3 to 10% per decade. So you can make it 3% or you can make it 10%. And one is going to have a very different outlook in 20 years than the other, as exponential gains start to set in. So I try to visualize that for like the 65-year-old who has no concept of like them slowing down. Like they still go to yoga twice a week and strength train and do all that. But really, if you want to keep doing what you're doing when you're 95, you're going to have to work generally a lot harder in the next few years.
Wow, that is really, really interesting. So, in terms of, let's say, for example, like my mom is turning 70. She's still like she honestly works out way more than I do. She trains at least 3 days a week, strength training, boxes, hikes. I look at her and I'm like, you act like you're in your 50s. So even let's say even with like optimal nutrition intake, you've got your protein high, you have resistance training built in. Is there, if you're checking all those boxes, what's the kind of the game changer or the piece that you bring in to prevent, further
Okay.
muscle loss on the higher end? Just out of
Yeah. Like I'm thinking of in my last cohort, like a very similar type of weekly program that this woman was on when she took the course. Okay, well, the average 70-year-old has at least two chronic conditions. So whatever those are, we take that into account, how to, with a chronic condition, whether it's pain or osteoporosis, diabetes, heart disease, we're going to set boundaries on a metric. So let's say osteoporosis, we set a DEXA scan boundary of like how much she's not willing to lose, but ideally she doesn't want to take medications. She's doing proper nutrition. So the things we're looking at for that chronic condition are your balance and your strength. Like those are kind of the functional domains that fit into that in my course. Again, another thing with like from your mom to the 90-year-old is we test these balance tests on a ladder. The 90-year-old's only going to get on step 2 and your mom's going to get to step 10. So there'd be the exercises that she would get would be to keep her at step 10. And same thing with the strength. Just for the sake of the course, we look at complex multi-joint movements. A deadlift and the single leg sit to stand are kind of the two that would be like most up your mom's alley. And so we'll take those and see where her limits are, give her like a 5 week program to get started on those. At your mom's level, there are marginal gains, but she can still set her boundaries for what she's willing to lose on her DEXA scan in 2 years. Usually you get that done every 2 years and without taking medication. So let's say if I lose 0.5 on my DEXA, I'll take a medication. And that's just like an agreement she has with herself. Or
Mhm.
she'll say, if I lose 0.5, I'm going to start a progressive strength and impact training routine.
Yeah.
So that is what we talk about in terms of chronic conditions in the course is learning to set your own boundaries uh,
That's
for your
awesome. So
unique
it's like,
conditions.
I love that too, because it's almost taking out the, extra brain space and for, managing and, everything we're holding up in our brain of like, what do I do? Even just like, it's like the gift of coaching, just like having that pathway of like, oh, this is the plan, this is
Uh-huh.
as much as I can do in terms of prevention, but here's like the game plan that we've already kind of mapped out. So interesting. So when people come to the live classes, are they like bringing dumbbells and stuff? Like I'm trying to envision, or, so everyone's on kind of like a different thing.
Okay. No, no, no.
Okay.
There's there's no actual and I write this on like the wait list, like when people join the wait list, I'm like, this is not a series of exercises, chair or otherwise. Like it is
Yeah.
a uh, educational interactive program
And then
where
they do it on their
yeah,
own.
they do it. The only one-on-one is the evaluation with me.
Got
So that is like a 40-minute deal, and that's where you get it's called your capacity compass, and it's where you're at now in 6 different metrics. And then it's from those 6 metrics that we make your plan towards your North Star. The program kind of jumps around, but the Monday, it's twice a week, 1 hour each class. And the first class is a lecture. I shouldn't call it a lecture. It's a series of stories where I get to be a 7-year-old. Yeah, the whole metaphor for the whole course is Ernest Shackleton's 1918 adventure to he attempted a trans-Antarctic crossing. And so we use that as the most logical metaphor for aging, which you just have to take the course to figure that out.
it.
But
Right.
yeah, so Monday is that. And then Friday is a more like where throughout the week you apply what we learned. So if we're talking about the chronic conditions, that's a whole week of, in your mom's case, osteoporosis, but it can be any chronic condition. And I try to, like, in my understanding of working with older adults, which is not just like working with adults and talking slower, it's letting my older adults come to the solution on their own because usually they're very smart and they just need guidance and they need somebody to not say, hey, you can come have your knee replacement whenever you're ready. Like it's more, hey, here's a plan, go follow it. The Monday class is a lecture, and then the other day is like a review of that concept or framework that we covered on Monday. And then we kind of put that all together into like puzzle pieces into their Healthspan trail map in the last week.
So I just have to say what's standing out to me, because we've been doing this for so long and I've taken countless other group programs and things like that. Like it already sounds like you have fine-tuned and mastered like the actual framework and plan and group experience, which is like to me, that's in this age of just information overload and we're all inundated with access to ChatGPT and AI. It's like you can go and look for information everywhere. We don't have to go to the card catalog in the library anymore. Like
Uh-huh.
I really like I sound so old when I try to explain to my sons, like, no, like literally you don't understand. Like when I was a little girl, like we went into the library and you had to pull out this drawer. Like I
Yeah.
remember that. And then you had to like look for stuff. And then there'd be like maybe a book on the topic and you have no idea who the source is. Is it reputable? Who knows? But now it's almost we have the opposite swing of that where there's access to so much information. And then you've got your doctor, for this population specifically being like, well, let's just do this. It seems like the fastest solution without the support available to kind of close the gap, at least from their ability to support that. I feel like what you're doing, what we're doing, what these practitioners out there who have these frameworks and programs, it's like you're curating and it's almost like more of like what we're not focusing on as well. Like you're curating an exact pathway. And even more specifically for what you're sharing, is it's bio-individual per person. So, like the 62-year-old's not going to have the same goal as the 92-year-old, and they're going to have different pathways, but the fact that you found a way to frame it and deliver it in this group format, which is, so much more engaging and fun to do it as a community. I mean, that stands out to me. Have you seen or heard like other programs like this, or like have you just been kind of like adding in support because you see the pieces that are missing and where people need more, follow up? Or how did you kind of come up with the framework?
Well, thank you for saying that this is somewhat of a new, or like the packaging it, and it's not just information or knowledge. At the end of the information or knowledge funnel is this, I hate to call it wisdom, but it's like I've been in clinical practice for 10 years. So like all those curmudgeon people that you mentioned, like they come to me, and if you present the information and the knowledge in a way that resonates with them, which you can tell by their nonverbals or their participation, or they're like, actually, you know what, now it doesn't hurt to go from sitting to standing anymore. I'll keep doing your silly exercises. There's just so many fun ways to get buy-in if you can hack into their intrinsic motivation. Yeah, so that is something I've learned how to do from many years of clinical practice, and a lot of failures along the way. A lot of people that are like, you pushed me too hard, I'm not coming back. Or like, I don't think you know what you're talking about, I'm not coming back. That's fine too. Like I am totally fine missing the mark on a few people, but I've just gotten so much encouragement from like that gentleman I told you about, avoiding his knee replacement. It's so hard to capture like what you don't need to do in a
Yeah.
program. And that same guy, he just wasn't, he did Pilates and he felt safe on like a reformer. And he did reformer Pilates and mat Pilates. And he's like, it's not helping my knee. It's not helping my walking pace. I'm still hesitant. Like in his program, it wasn't about like doing harder Pilates. It was like, let's just try, for in his case, he had a treadmill at his house. So we took out the balance component by holding onto the handrails. And now he's walking faster. Like he can just walk faster because he doesn't have to worry about his feet. And he doesn't have to look down at the uneven sidewalk. And yeah, we don't stay there. We go outside, and he knows how fast he's walking. And let's say your mom or this gentleman, they spend a lot more time than they need on probably the domain that they need the least amount of help with. And I know
Yes.
I know that's like a big thing, but like if you just do a lot of power walking all the time, your endurance is probably great, but
Right.
you're maybe not that strong, or you might have like bone density problems. So even on my online program, I only spend 40 minutes with these people. I mean, it's a culmination of the 10 years I just did in clinic, and I've repackaged it, the knowledge in a different way. And that's what I think makes this program stand out, is that it's not like a simple like, oh, you have a balance problem, do these exercises. It's like you have a balance problem on the ninth rung, so we're gonna make the eighth rung really hard so you can get to the 10th rung. Like and there's a lot of playing with the different domains. Like, gait, for example, is a balance exercise for some people if you're walking at a certain pace, whether that's really fast or really slow. It becomes like this balance issue for, especially for someone who's had a fall and is 80 years old. Kind of those in between where I don't find many programs like off the shelf. And I know I talked to you about this, like doing this just doing like a pre-recorded course is something I really have a hard time with, because the people that come in, like in this last cohort, everyone kind of had like an endurance problem. Like they got out of breath going up a few flights of stairs. So I geared like a whole week to that, to like figuring out where your rate of perceived exertion is and kind of pulling on that lever. I think there is a uniqueness and a personalization, and then you get your own program after 5 weeks, and you have these tools that you can apply the next time you have a big setback. Or you're managing your chronic conditions. Like you don't need, like you can do it with the help of your Healthspan guides, whether it's a nutritionist or yeah, your PCP. Like, I just want to be, and that's why it's hard to kind of sell this, is like it does fall in between the cracks of a lot of different specialists, as we commonly know in the medical industrial complex. So it's hard to just like own it, because it does like work into personal training and primary care and physical therapy. But I think it's the best of all those worlds.
I was going to say, and I bet that the other practitioners involved appreciate your bridging the gap, really. I hear from some doctors and primary care providers that they're grateful for like us being able to provide, in-depth
Yes.
support. They don't have time to do it,
Yes.
like and I know like some doctors and practitioners get such a bad rap for being so siloed and experts in this one field. And it's like, well, maybe that's a good thing to some degree, because we need them to be really, really good at this thing that they do. And then I feel like where, this next wave of kind of more the interactive coaching and support, that it's really filling that gap to exactly what you're speaking about. So to me, it sounds like you're creating this foundation, and you're not just like, it's almost the equivalent. The only way I can think of it is like, we don't do meal plans. We like teach you the skill of eating
Yes.
balanced, right? So you're teaching the skill of these like foundational movements, but like individualized to what they need, which is so
Yeah.
great. That is, I love that. And then, they can continue that on and feel empowered to do that on their own. I also
Yeah.
feel like just an ongoing group so they can, do that together.
I mean, to that point of it being a skill, that's maybe the what I'm trying to get across, is that aging is a skill, and it can be trained, it can be tested, and it can be transferred into function.
Yeah.
So that's basically my philosophy, is that once people are like aware that it's something they can accelerate downwards by
Yeah.
not doing anything, then the exact opposite must be true. That like your mom is doing a lot for her aging. She's training herself, but I would encourage her to find like those tests, which is like the thing that I do. So they know, hey, with your single leg sit to stand, you're at 22 inches, and at your fourth rep, you start to lose quad strength. So
Mm.
like that's something you can work on, or
Yeah.
not, like if you don't care. Yeah, but
Right,
at
right.
least you know.
Right.
Yeah.
And so what's interesting to me too is what you're touching on that we see as well is that people kind of, and this we see with all ages, is that we kind of have this tendency to lean towards a type of physical activity or movement that just feels, I don't know, maybe mentally or physically easier or just more in alignment. So for example, like I've always been drawn to heavy lifting, always. I think it's just like genetically in my, like if you look at the people in my family, like we're all like big quads, big glutes, like very like power athletes. Like I have a bioelectrical impedance body composition machine in our living room or dining room that we've converted to like the health corner. And so whenever family comes over, I'm like, get on the machine, like we're scanning you.
Oh, cool.
I'm
I'll have to
probably
try
like
that.
drive everybody crazy. But especially my parents, it's been so amazing like that scan, and I love that you're utilizing that, because like I don't think that is as common knowledge as I would like it as a nutrition coach, to like go for the scan and get that detailed feedback versus just like weighing yourself on the scale. Like that it's
Yeah.
so vastly different. And like bringing into conversation muscle mass, bone health, bone strength. So, I've been able to scan my parents and they're like, wow, they're like fascinated by the data and it's really intrinsically motivated. So we did their scans like in December, and I was like, hey, we got to get on this with protein and strength training, and just seeing the shift, they came back a couple months later and, both of them lost body fat and gained muscle mass. So, what I find though, in our practice with all ages is like certain body types or personalities or whatever, will tend to gravitate towards the physical activity that feels almost like
Yeah,
easiest to get.
easies. Yeah.
So in our family, all the scans I've done, I'm just like, my no, none of the men in my family really like train their lower body, like maybe my older brother, but their muscle mass is insane. I'm like, how do you have, like, how is this possible? Like it just it like I read so many scans every day and I'm just mind blown. I'm like it's just the amount of muscle that you have is mind blowing. So that body type we've all gravitated towards like power sports, heavy lifting, right? But like in anything endurance for me, like a run or anything cardio, I'm like kill me now.
Yeah.
I like the only way I could do it is like if I'm dancing and I'm at, at a music event or something like that. And then the opposite is true. You see more of the like ectomorph body types that are kind of like long and lean and like it would take quite a bit of energy and like very specific training to gain muscle or, build more strength. They tend to be the runners and, maybe more like yoga or Pilates. But it's just interesting to see like what we gravitate towards and that you're also looking at, rounding out, it sounds like the different modalities of like there's cardiovascular health, there's strength, there's mobility, there's flexibility, there's stability. And so making sure it sounds like that they're getting all of those modalities, improved in some sense.
What I hear you saying is like people that want to, they have this intrinsic motivation to gain muscle or to lose weight. The difference between like a 40 or 50-year-old and a 60 or 80-year-old is the training isn't necessary. Like that might be a bonus, are those things, but really like I want to train how to squat down and get up off a toilet
Yeah,
without using my hands when I'm 100.
yeah,
So you have to be able to have a certain amount of strength when you're 60 or be on that trajectory. Or I want to be able to go up 3 flights of stairs without, those things need to be trained and they can be kind of delivered to a participant like in a roundabout way where it's like, you might be an ectomorph and you're a really good swimmer, but you're losing mobility in your knee, your ankle, your hip, and like those are things that you don't want to lose when you're 90 and you want to go on a hike. So like let's add in 1 day a week of mobility training with given your deficits and we'll
yeah.
like figure those out. So yeah, it's fun hearing you like the challenges, I'm 37 and we don't think about getting up off a toilet or getting off the ground. Like when you're like the fall thing is like you have to put it in context that like a 90-year-old probably hasn't gotten on the ground or off the ground maybe in 10 years. Like if they play their cards right and haven't had a fall. But
Do
yeah, that's
you ever manipulate? So I like even when you started, you said the word biomechanics.
uh-huh.
And have you read any of Katie Bowman's books?
No, but I've heard of her. That name sounds familiar, but no.
She's written so many books. She has a podcast called Nutritious Movement. And she was kind of like my gateway into biomechanics and like looking at whole body from like as little as like eye movement to like whole body, walking
Oh, cool.
mechanics. What I love, I just love her approach. It sounds very similar to what you're talking about is, filling in the gaps and looking at the whole body. And one of the things that I was so inspired by her immediately, because she studies oh gosh, what is it called? Septenarians, octogenarians,
Oh, sure, yeah.
or
100-year-olds,
centenarian? Yeah.
centenarians, yeah.
Yes, thank you. Centenarians. So she studies like the physical health and mobility and physical activity in like thriving 100-year-olds and has written a lot of books about it. And so and they're like, she's done some videos and podcasts and it's like they're like, on monkey bars. I mean, they look like they're 10.
Yeah.
And one of the things she was suggesting in one of her books, like, and I did it right away. She was like, the best thing you can do is, minimize your furniture, put all the chairs away, like get used to getting up on the floor, down on the floor. So I remember the first thing I did was like I cut off the elevation to our couch. So then we had a floor couch, and I got rid of all of our chairs. I just like hid all of our furniture. And, my parents would come over and my dad's like, "Where's that comfy green couch?" And I'm like, "Sorry, Dad, you're gonna have to sit on the couch."
Yeah.
And just him having to squat, Katie's whole like theory is like forget about intentional exercise, like integrate it into your everyday life. So because he had to go past 90 degrees, he's huffing and puffing, getting down. He's like, "Oh," and then has to get up. And I'm like, "Yeah, every time you have to get up, you have to do a squat, below 90." And I'm like, "This is so great. I'm forcing people around me to exercise
Yeah.
without their permission." So it's something that has stuck with me, and it's like still to this day, I have a trampoline in our family room, and minimal furniture, and it's amazing when you look at the environment. It like really can have an impact on how you're just moving your body throughout your day. So even at work, I'll like take my laptop in weird places and get in a deep
Yeah.
squat. And, it's like you can like I can't imagine just sitting at a desk like I used to, back in the day. So even I like that you're bringing that into the equation as well, just thinking about more of that like functional movement, like getting up off of a toilet, it's
Yeah.
literally these are skills that we need to have. So it's just so cool. I'm like so stoked to hear that you're supporting this demographic. And I agree. I really do feel like they're underserved. So with that, we'll be sending everyone we know to our community in the Green Door Life. If you have, is there like an age limit to like you have to be this old to join the program?
Yeah. The data definitely gets less quality, like probably below 60 years old. So at 60, we start to have much better data collection for geriatric care. So yeah, I'd say 60. I mean, if you're very sedentary, then you could be a little younger. But yeah, it definitely is like 60 to 100 is the general age range that I look for. Yeah, and it's a good program to get going too. Like you mentioned more like the high level of your mom. She's going to be seeking marginal gains at this point in her life. Not marginal, like they don't matter, but like she's pretty operating with a slim margin for improvement. Whereas like I think the program's great for the curmudgeon 75-year-old lazy boy, your dad, maybe.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
because it is like a fun way to look at health span. And there's as much as there is as I want people to do more and to lift heavy, I'm also okay if you don't want to. And I'm
Yeah.
just going to show you that data too. Like it doesn't, when you see that little compass and it's like got all the, it's like a reservoir of area, and you see how that shrinks from 75 to 85, and it says, you might not be able to get up off a chair without, or you might need an assistive device in 10 years. That gets people's attention. Um,
Motivating.
yeah,
Yeah.
so and that was like part of the curmudgeon-y side of motivating people, because those are people that really need the most help. If I can get them to enroll in my course, then they'll be very well served to see what they're missing out on if they don't want to improve.
I mean, that's all we can really do, right? Is meet people where they're at. And I mean, it's the whole kind of idea too of progressive strength training and small habit change. It's like we're not going to give you, a 100-pound weight on day one. We
Yep.
just have to, meet them where they're at and then build from there. So
Yeah.
amazing. So what is the best way for our community to find you and sign all their parents and grandparents up?
Well, I have a Instagram account that we'll have to link to. And then I wanted to offer viewers of your show or of your membership to $100 off of the program, which starts the next cohort starts October 13th. The coupon code is Green Door Life.
Awesome.
And so we'll make sure to include that page where you can get a little more information on the program. But my website is heatherlanept.com, and you can see some of the other services on there as well.
Awesome. Beautiful. So heatherlanept.com and then all one word will be the coupon, and we'll link all of that in this podcast episode and also wherever else you're absorbing this episode.
Hmm.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Patrick. It was so great to chat with you. And I just love, hearing from other practitioners in their zone of genius and mastery. And like so grateful again that you're helping this demographic and population. It's pretty
Yeah.
special.
Thank you so much for having me, Lisa. I hope to connect with some of your audience members.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, everyone, take care, and we will see you next time on the Elevated Frequency Podcast.